We are a Free Palestine anti-Israel channel. Anyone who follows our channel has been following it and knows what our universal message has been. We stand with Palestine. We stand with liberation of the working class, and we stand for revolutionary change. So, without question, we are asking for trouble. And so we must be prepared for it to come. I bring this up because before we get to the two main stories of tonight, I want you all to remember that this is what we deal with on a regular basis. Censorship is how you get people that do this for a career to stay in line. Carl Cameron, and I believe this is from C-SPAN. Here's what he had to say about the Zionist state.
Story, which was denounced by the pro-Israel lobby in this country as anti-Semitic and biased and inaccurate. Much of what we've reported has now been reported all over the world because the documents that I used and was careful to protect, because some of it was considered classified and secret at the time, have now appeared virtually all over the world, corroborating our story.
Yes. So, as you can see, Fox News series on Israeli spying in the U.S. in December of 2001 was confirmed. The dancing Israelis on 9/11 were confirmed. How? There's video footage of them. They were there to witness the event. But as we have seen, censorship goes hand in glove with putting a lid on all of this. That's what they do. Getting stories canned, kind of like Barry Weiss getting the CCOT story canned. That's what happens now. At the time, one story was considered a big problem. Today, it's as if every story gets canned. And this is a Fox News composite, not some liberal rag. They went to the heart of the problem with the direct connection between the United States and Israel on 9/11. As Jen has been saying quite a bit lately, and I am piggybacking off of her comment of the call is coming from inside the house. What they're telling you is what happened is the complete opposite of what really went down.
Of the world, because the documents that I used and was careful to protect, because some of it was considered classified and secret at the time, have now appeared virtually all over the world, corroborating our story. There's a report that was circulated, it has now been disclosed by the DEA, that reported that over the course of a year and a half, numerous federal agencies had encountered individuals who refer to themselves as Israeli art students, essentially visiting these facilities, military installations, FBI, DEA, INS, both the publicly listed addresses as well as some that are not made public, and those particular facilities are intended to be kept secret. And they began to ask questions and attempt to sell their art. And we reported that this was a dynamic that had been described by government documents as an intelligence gathering operation.
Which, of course, it was. Anytime something seems off, there's probably a reason for that. Is it reasonable to surmise, for example, that Mr. Jacoby is an agent of the Mossad? I don't think so. There's too many obvious components to what's going on here to suggest otherwise. What we're dealing with is a complete systemic takeover of our political and economic system. They've taken over Congress. They run the banks. By that measure, they run the whole fucking thing. So when they find a story that they don't like, they're going to kill it. This is why Mr. Ellison had to take over CBS News. This is why Mr. Ellison is now attempting a hostile takeover of Warner Brothers. And with it, CNN. They want it all. And since we do not enforce laws in this country anymore, and don't give me the bullshit that it's because it's the Democrats who are not in power, we're overrun by oligarchs. Zionist billionaire oligarchs, like Leslie Wexner, who ran, financed, and controlled the entire Epstein operation for decades and still is walking scot-free. When you see it for what it really is, you can't unsee it. There is no going back to sleep. There is no sense of normalcy in this broken system ever again. Now we're on a train that is not going to stop until we bust through the broken establishment and make it no more. There's no putting on the brakes now. We have left the station, and we're not stopping until we get to that revolutionary destination.
Following that particular story, we then described the U.S. intelligence community's grave concerns that our civilian telecommunications are compromised and vulnerable to intelligence gathering because many of the companies that provide services in our telephone calling are owned by or closely aligned with Israel, and that they have been occasionally investigated by our federal government for tapping or taking information from our telecommunications for the purposes of intelligence. And finally, that there is a concern in our government that the way in which we actually conduct wiretapping is also potentially vulnerable to compromise and intercept. Because
now, he just brought up a great point, because as you can see, this is a throwback clip. Now, one of the things that we have talked about at length on this channel, yes, we all know Larry Silverstein is probably the mastermind behind 9/11 in terms of the conduit connection between the US and Israel, and of course, the person who owned the World Trade Center. Now, that being said, when you think about all the different policies that get passed over the years, in particular in response to the war on terror, and you think about our civil liberties being removed, it was always intentional. They always look for a reason to take away our rights, which is why everyone at this point is convinced that everything that happens is the result of a false flag. We have become, in many ways, a police state. The only reason we haven't become a completely overt police state is because a significant portion of this country is armed. And if we weren't, well, my guess is you would have the National Guard marching through the streets, all streets of this country. That's what we're looking at. And when we think about what's been taken from us, all in the name of security. But as Ben Franklin once said, and perhaps the most important line or memorable quote from his life, of which he had many, but when he said, "Those who would give up liberty for security deserve neither," he was right. We have been a habitually propagandized nation for far too long. And we look back on this now and realize just how bad it was at the time that it was happening. But when there's chaos happening left and right, you don't have a moment to slow down and realize what's being taken from you. We do know now. But what if we knew that? And how do we use what we know now to make sure that what happened then doesn't happen again? How do we get out of this? Well, I think we're learning that this is a class war and nothing more. Once you come to that realization, the left, right, red, blue, conservative, liberal, etc. divide, it's just a construct to keep us divided so we don't deal with the actual problems that are facing our daily lives. Our job on this channel is to ensure that that doesn't happen.
Some of the companies involved with the manufacturing of that equipment are Israeli, and that they've never been tested for vulnerabilities, and that too has been investigated as a potential threat.
Did anyone tell you to kill the story?
What happened was we did put the transcripts of my story on the internet, and after a period of several days it was taken down off the internet as what I've been told was merely to make available for a huge deluge of war-related material.
There you go. We find ourselves, as a result of policies of yesteryear happening today, and we were not smart enough to deal with then. I have said that the worst domestic president of our lifetime, of this generation, was Bill Clinton. And the worst foreign policy president of this lifetime was George W. Bush. Remember the Patriot Act, which took away our civil liberties. That was constructed under Clinton and passed under Bush. NAFTA was constructed under Reagan and Bush, primarily Bush, and passed under Clinton. It's like one big circular firing squad. You have to have the courage to see the forest through the trees. It's a dangerous world out there. We get it. But collectively, we have to work together. It's the only way.